Field, and I want to welcome you all here tonight. This is an informational meeting for legislators. We have major issues on the table coming up, and actually, not to shock you or anything, but at our last NECOG meeting, we had some questions or discussion items for this town hall meeting tonight, so I can share those with you now, things that we will. But this is an evening here where the public gets an opportunity to speak to the legislators and ask questions about what's going on, what's coming up in the upcoming session, concerns you may have, questions you have, what's happening. So this is a great opportunity for you to come in tonight to ask, be part of the community. So again, my name is Kevin Cunningham, First Selectman. Here you have to the right of me Anne Dauphinais, and also Dubitsky. So they represent between, what, let's see, 9, 10, 11, maybe 12 towns altogether. So again, thank you all for being here tonight. So if you don't mind, you have some of the legislative concerns you have coming up this go-around. If you have any concerns or questions, comments here, how do you want to start it off?
Well, my goal in these pre-session meetings is basically to listen to you. We have, our session starts on January 8th, and it goes for 5 months. The bills that we propose have to be submitted within about a week after January 8th. Generally, they usually tell us a couple days before it's due, but it's typically the Friday of the following week. So we essentially, after January 10th, January 8th, we usually have about 10 days to get our bills in. During that time, we have to come up with our concepts, we have to put together language, we have to submit them through several different reviews, several different teams of attorneys look at them and play with them and change the language and then send them back to us to see if they still say what we wanted them to say. So what I like to do leading up to that process is just go to the towns that I represent, 8 of them, and ask people what's going on, what they think is happening in town, what they like, what they don't like, what in state law they think should be changed, and we can discuss if we have the ability to change it, if it's a good idea to change it, and what if it is a good idea to change it, what's the best way to do that? There are many ways to get laws changed, and one of the things that we try to do is think through the unintended consequences of making those changes. How will a small change in one area affect many other areas, affect other people, affect other businesses, affect other governmental entities? And I like to think that that's one of the things that, come on, sit down. I like to think that's one of the things that we do well, particularly myself and Anne Dauphinais and our colleagues. I think we tend to think through the unintended consequences of any given change in law. And that's why these meetings are good too, because if one person says, I think you should change a certain law, another person sitting right next to him might say, you know, that's going to affect my business, please don't do that, and we have that discussion. So, from my standpoint, I have a piece of paper and a pen, and I'm here to listen to you. I'll certainly answer any questions you have that I am able to answer, but I have, and I know Ann has, town hall meetings and goes to events all the time where we can tell you things. I'd kind of like these to be where you tell us.
Ditto. I think I agree with everything that Representative Dubitsky said. One of the reasons why we had these right after the election was to get ahead of the session and to hear from you, to see if there was anything that we could perhaps put in or change or amend or offer in any way. So it is your time to talk to us and tell us what you're interested in, what your concerns are. I certainly heard some of them over the campaign time, and I'm looking forward to hearing for any others that you may not have gotten an opportunity to talk to us about.
So I would ask that, I guess you're having a problem hearing us out there, so we're going to make sure we put the microphone right up to us. That makes it a little easier. But this is an opportunity for you to ask questions, bring up ideas, concerns. So I would actually open up the floor before we get into some of the NECOG questions and concerns, because we have a list. But is there anybody here that would like to address the representatives here and ask a question or talk about a topic of concern? If not, I'll speak. You don't want that.
I saw two hands.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Michelle Chamberlain. I'm with Lisbon.
Why don't you come up here and grab one of these so everybody can hear you?
Thank you.
I also have that one over there that works.
Oh, okay.
So, I understand, Hartford. A lot of things go on up there which your hands are tied because of the fact that you're outnumbered up at the legislative building there. But the concern I have really is a nonpartisan issue. It's a concern that for anybody that's had any time to spend to research about Agenda 21 and Agenda 30, I would highly recommend you do so. And the reason I say that is because just for those of you who walk outside every day and look up in the sky, if you're not aware, we are being bombarded daily with chemicals being sprayed on us through geoengineering. And it's happening not only in Connecticut, it's happening all over the country, it's happening globally. And much of this has to do with, again, like I mentioned, the Agenda 21, Agenda 30, which are comes out of the World Economic Forum. And it has to do with the whole group of ideas and dystopia lifestyle that they want to herd us into. And with this geoengineering, which is basically weather modification, and I've gone out on a limb on social media to talk about it. Of course, lots of people are very unaware of it, so the first thing they want to do is attack you on it. But the reason I bring it up is because we are being sprayed every day with chemicals. It's impacting our health, it's impacting our environment, and it's also part of a plan and tied into the whole climate agenda, which I know the state of Connecticut and the Democrats are very wedded to. Whenever they do plans, they do it many, many years in advance. So to get to their goal, this is something that's been going on for a long time. And right now, with, we had a recent drought, which, we had a fire alert. This is all planned. And one of the things that I see happening that concerns me, in addition to the geoengineering, is their whole goal is to basically eventually get everybody off of private properties and put them into smart cities. And if you look around the state, you can certainly see those plans being implemented on a local level as well as being pushed down from the state to the local level. And with that being said, the infrastructure that they need in order to achieve that is what you're starting to see happening throughout our towns with the increased cameras, with increased surveillance, with the whole affordable housing, the whole agenda from the town planners to push different zoning plans on us. So I guess my concern about why I bring this up is tremendously because it impacts everybody, but I know the state of Tennessee tried to pass some laws related to banning any geoengineering spraying on people. I don't know that you'll necessarily get the support in Hartford to pass something, but I think it's very important that as Republicans that we begin to talk about this and bring awareness. And I would like to see something passed on, proposed before the legislative body about this, even if we're not able to get to support this session, but to start getting people to understand what is happening to us so that we can begin to fight back on a local level and straight up. Thank you.
I really appreciate your comments. I know I've been extremely interested in a lot of the issues that you brought up. I know you didn't mention 5G, but that was another interest that I've heard about. It goes from whether it's vaccines to environment, toxins, to the things you're talking about in our air. So it's a very, very, very big issue in a lot of ways. So I am interested in learning more about it. And I'm sure Representative Dubitsky is as well, because we always want to hear about issues like that and learn more. I'm not on environment, but I'm open to anything that you want to bring me and to listen and to understand better.
I am on the Environment Committee, and I don't recall any of the words that you mentioned ever being discussed in the Environment Committee, whether implementing it or banning it. Do you have any evidence that this is being done in Connecticut that would start a conversation at the legislature?
Well, certainly looking up in the skies every day, you can see it, but if you needed more documented evidence, I'm sure that can be gathered. I know there's lots of people in the state, a lot of citizens that are very familiar and have done a lot of research on this. If you study what the global agenda is for Agenda 30, it's all tied into 5G. It's all tied into taking away private properties. I mean,
well, global agenda does not necessarily mean that the airplanes flying over Hartford are spraying some type of toxic chemical.
Do you look up in your skies? Do you not see that it's happening? I mean, it's
well,
not like
we can certainly see contrails, but contrails are not. We need evidence to show that those are something other than water vapor. Do you have any of that evidence that I could bring to the Environment Committee?
I could work on it.
Okay. If you've got something, I'd be glad to talk to you about it. But in one of my former lives, I was a pilot. I still carry a pilot's license with me. Not every trail you see coming out of a jet engine is anything other than water vapor. There are water vapor trails.
True.
So, if you can establish that there's somebody spraying something on the people of Connecticut, I will be the first one to bring that evidence to the Environment Committee and try to get it stopped.
Well, I do appreciate your efforts to do that. I'm a little dismayed to hear that your knowledge of it is somewhat limited, because it's not something, like I say, that just happened overnight. It's been going on for years, and they've been ramping it up. I mean, they're trying to manipulate the weather. I mean, the whole drought that we had and the fires that we had, I mean, this is about a land grab, because they need to deforest some of the area so that they can get the 5G to go through, so that they can get all of that stuff to work. I mean, this is part of a bigger goal. And the Democrats who've been ruling our state for quite a few years, they take their marching orders from other people. So it's not like this is just, something I made up on my head.
My suggestion is we take it one piece at a time.
Sure.
And if you have evidence of somebody spraying something, that's a concrete issue that we can have addressed legislatively. The fact that there are people in Switzerland who have put out white papers that say they want to imprison people and, you know, and change the way society works, I'm not sure that that's an issue that we can legislate in the Connecticut legislature. So, you know, one step at a time. Concrete issues we can certainly address, and if you've got something solid, I'd be glad to raise it at the legislature.
Tim Reiner. So on her note, they are spraying us. My children know what chemtrails are, and they know what chemtrails are. The United States Air Force has admitted that they spray chemtrails. The Army also sprays chemtrails, so it's documented. There's also geoengineering.com or .org that also has a whole bunch of information. And the other day, so I don't know how long this has been going on, but I've been noticing that every day on my days off, there's 2 military planes that fly over my house, very low. And last week, one of them was spraying stuff. My trees all died this year. So what's going on? Every other year, nothing's happened, and then I noticed like my lilacs are dead in a week. This person's lilacs are dead 2 days later. Something's definitely going on. So this is an issue for me as well, and one of the issues I was going to bring up. And Bill Gates has also said that he needs to eliminate the population.
As I said, you know, give me something concrete that I can bring to the legislature, and I'll be the first one to do it.
I really appreciate you sharing those concerns. I know, I just want to use one example. For years, people have had concerns about fluoride, and it's finally coming to fruition. And as a nurse, I, for decades, watched medications get approved by the FDA. We've been sold that they were safe, and then years later, they've been pulled off the market because of all the problems. So I hear you, and I understand that there are concerns, and it is hard. It's such a big issue to grapple. So anything you can bring to us is helpful, and we're looking well beyond these small towns in our state. We're talking federal, you talked about the military, so anything you can bring us is helpful and appreciated. Thank you.
Is there another challenge? Yeah.
Sir.
Good evening.
You okay? You just got to hold it right close to your mouth.
Yes, okay. I'm not sure you can help us with this, but I'm going to bring something to your attention that I hope will be solved. It's something that affects 300 to 400 at least of your constituents, mostly elderly, but not necessarily. Learning in Retirement at Boulevard Valley Community College is an organization that has been there for 30 years. They present programs to everybody, mainly senior citizens, but anybody can go. And I think they're doing very well at this. There is now a movement to throw them out. Clearly, we are being forced out step by step by step. The very new CEO at the college has bluntly publicly stated that the goal of the college is academic students, people who take courses there, and that the mission is not to be or to do anything with community programs, etc. I think this is important to the whole. And the interesting thing is that Three Rivers Community College and 2 others that have learning and retirement programs, they have no problem. They just continue on. Somehow there is something strange happening at QB that we are being slowly but surely forced out. Already in the coming year, we We can no longer do our Monday programs. We have to go and find another place. They are telling us some of the Fridays, but they cannot guarantee even those days. I just think this is a very important thing when a college that is a community college no longer deals with community interaction and programs. I'm not sure what you folks can do about this, but it's a big issue, a very, very big issue for 300 to 400 people who are members at this moment. Thank you.
Sir?
Are they
Your name?
Oh, so we want to just like carry on.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Frank. I don't think either one of us are on the higher education committee. I do think that Senator May Flexer is that something that you brought to her attention?
Sorry?
Senator May Flexer, I think she's your senator, just wondered if you had brought it to her attention.
No, I haven't spoken to her.
Okay, because I believe she is on the higher end, I know she's.
I would certainly approach her too, but we were told about the program.
Yeah, no.
So they said,
Absolutely.
I said, okay, I'm on the board, so I said, okay, I'll
Yeah,
go.
no, we appreciate it, and I'm familiar with the program, I know a lot of people who have participated.
Well, they can miss out a
Yeah,
lot.
no, I really can appreciate it. I was trying to understand if the problem happened with the merge, if that's when it came up, or if there was any correlation, or do you have any thoughts on that?
We're not sure, and I'll tell you why. The merger has been complicated, and it's causing a lot of difficulties, even with the staff and the students. That's for sure. But why is it not affecting Three Rivers?
That's where, yeah, I was curious about that
We
too.
don't know. They, of course, are subject to everything else. And the other two colleges that do well in retirement also apparently not affected. Why QV? There is some fear they want to close QV. That would be detrimental for this area. It's the only educational facility close by that students can go to.
I'm on the board at QB. I have not heard any rumor that they want to close it, although I know there were a lot of concerns about the merge, how that was going to impact us. Whenever an entity goes from small, local, to combined with becoming big, it's a concern, right? It's sort of like the towns versus regionalization, because your voice gets way smaller, and your ability to be heard gets smaller. So I will certainly look into that. That's the first I've heard of that for LIR, and I will look into it for you. And I'll give you my cards as well.
I'll give you a call.
Sure.
You wish to call. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. You know, I was opposed to that merger. For those who don't know, all of the community colleges in the state have been merged together into one system. While they each used to be independent and fairly autonomous, now they're all run out of Hartford. We thought it was a very bad idea. I was told by multiple people that it was going to save all kinds of money, and my understanding is it now costs more. One of the reasons why I opposed it is because each college had its own unique character, serving a different community that is unique. Certainly QV is a lot different than Three Rivers, which is in the middle of Norwich. You know, there are small community colleges all over the state that serve different constituents, and they have different programs and different curricula and offer different courses for different types of students. And if a student wants a specific type of program, they could go there. Or they could, you know, even if they're from a different part of the state, they could travel up there and they could, you know, move and take classes at that school just like any other. Now, I fear that they're all sort of starting to look the same. And we're going to have essentially one college with multiple campuses as opposed to multiple colleges. And I think we are, my fear was that we would definitely lose something in the translation, and I fear that my original hesitation and my original fears are coming true. And your situation sounds like a perfect example of that. You would certainly take a look at it and see if there's anything we can do. My guess is that all those decisions are now being made in Hartford. Anyone else?
Well, before you get into other people, I just have a quick thing. You have a list of what we talked about in ECOG. We can talk about these things offline, but there are a couple of things I just wanted to mention. We just had an early voting. The process was implemented, and we had some concerns with duration, the costs, and operational impact. If you can get some time to talk, we'd love to have a conversation, and maybe even so whatever the costs were to, whether it be Plainfield or Chaplin or Sterling, we're going to have to incur those costs in the future. So I just want to talk about that in the future with you, if that's okay. And the other one that I have a real problem with is, it's minute as it is the considerations for legal notice, publications, and cost-effective alternatives. The problems that I have right now is if you are trying to be enforced by the state of Connecticut to put something in a legal notice in the paper, I understand the reason why. The problems are that the communications with a newspaper and circulation has totally changed over the years. Everybody here has probably gone on to maybe a service which you buy and go online and read. If you were to go right now and say, okay, I'm going to ask that we get a something legal notice in the paper for as soon as possible, it used to be the next day or day after. Not anymore. Now it's, oh, it could be a week, it could be 10 days. So how do you plan for a town meeting or a referendum if you don't even know what dates you're going to post it in there? You could be out of violation with the state of Connecticut or with the laws are written. So if that becomes something else we can talk about offline, I would appreciate that.
Absolutely. And for each of those things, if you wouldn't mind coming up with some suggested changes. You know, saying that it's a problem is easy, but if we come up with a fix, it may not be the fix that you think is fixing it.
I appreciate that, and I will absolutely do it. I tell you right now, for the notice of publications, not that it's the greatest, but you also have a local paper which absolutely comes out every week, and that's the Turnpike Buyer. It reaches at your home for free. You actually know the schedule when it comes out. I think that might be an alternative to do that for local. It helps us tremendously. I don't know if that's the same thing all around the state, but I think it's something to get at least a look at.
Do they have legal notices?
Yes. No, but I think that's some of the legislation we can put in there for legal notice to allow that to occur in that type of a paper.
And right now it's
No,
not.
you have to put it into like a Norwich Bulletin or Harvard Current. You have to actually put it into a circulation paper. Not every.
My understanding was it just says a newspaper of general circulation in the town.
Well, we don't have it in the town, so the closest we can come to it, we've asked the attorneys, the closest we can come to would be Norwich Bulletin, because it's circulation. How did everybody find out about this meeting tonight? Okay. That's a great way to do it, as long as we have your emails.
Right.
Yeah. Second would be, well, we can put something in our Facebook pages. If you read our Facebook pages, it could be on the town website. If you read those town websites, we have something in here in the town called Nixle. Nixle is a vehicle which, if you sign up for, you can get it automatically on your phone, if you want to do that. Publications are another way to do it. We put signs out there when it comes time for town meetings or votes. We try everything possible under the sun to inform people. And you know what I get all the time? You didn't tell me. I didn't know about it. So I'm trying to minimize the cost to the town a regular process for that, and I think that's something we can definitely talk about. As far as the other one, again, these are some of the things we had on here, and those I highlighted in dark are my real concerns. They all are, but those are the higher ones. The early voting, the cost. That is going to be an impact brought onto the small towns. I cannot think about a way that Scotland is going to pay for this in the future. Plainfield, we have to budget for it every year. I mean, they did it for the primary, and then they changed the process for the actual election, how they do it, which caught everybody off guard.
Well, I think one of the more important issues, not only the cost, but in a town like Scotland or in Chatham, you essentially have 4 or 5 people working 14 hours a day for 14 days, and altogether you get maybe 50, 60 early voters. So, you know, that's like, you know, in a given day, you have 5 people working, you might have 3 or 4 people coming to vote. That doesn't make much sense.
On top of that, you've also got IT support. You have to have IT support in case something goes down. So there's more factors to it, more costs. I think that it would be prudent. I'll try to come up with an alternative, like maybe 5 days instead of 14.
Well, I think the Secretary of State has already indicated that she recognizes that 14 days may be too long. We're eventually going to have no excuse absentee balloting. So why do we need early voting? Or if we have early voting, why do we need no excuse absentee voting? You know, and why do we, the biggest problem that we had this year was with regard to same-day registration. You know, we've got all these different ways of doing things, and each one of them is creating more and more problems. So my feeling is we should just pick one and let's address the problems that it causes and get rid of all the others.
I agree.
Yeah, and I would add to that, so I don't think either one of us supported early voting, and I think what we see happen a lot is something is highlighted on the ballot, like early voting, and everybody thinks it sounds like a great idea, but the problem was that you didn't know what the plan was. You didn't know what the cost was. What did that look like? That wasn't explained on the ballot, and nobody knew it. They just thought, well, the idea sounded great. Yeah, sure, I'd love to do early voting. So it ended up being 2 full weeks at a huge cost to the towns, at a time when we can't even find people to work. So it wasn't even just the cost, but finding people to staff it is a huge problem. And I would add what Representative Dubitsky just said about same-day registration, very problematic, and I would add to that that election day registration is even bigger. But if you talk to the registrars, which rarely seem to be included in the plan, or whether they think it's a good idea or not, they'll tell you that their biggest problem is same-day and election day registration, because you want to make sure that voters are vetted. And it's nearly impossible to vet somebody that quickly, effectively, efficiently, with the staff. And we saw that problem, and I'm sure you've all heard about it in Mansfield, where there were almost 1,000 people that came in. And the biggest question right now is, how could they possibly have vetted all of those people with the staff that they had? They had a bare bones staff. So there's a lot of questions going on, and I think the other thing that Representative Dubitsky mentioned is that we keep adding on and piling on, and it's making more and more opportunity for fraud, more and more opportunities for problems. You know, so that's what we're seeing with all of these ideas. And I would tell you that absentee ballot voting changed when COVID came. When COVID came, they added on the ballot sickness. That really made it no excuse absentee ballot, and I'll tell you why. Just that square, you could check it, and it could be for your sickness, your animal's sickness, your neighbor's sickness, your Uncle Frank in Montana's sickness. It can be because you are afraid of getting sick. And I say that, and I know it does sound funny, but honestly, that made it no excuse absentee ballot, right? You could literally check that box and nobody could question you. So we didn't even need this new addition of no excuse absentee ballot. We're concerned about that as well because we believe that might lead to a statewide mail-out voting ballot to everybody in the state. We saw the problems that brought with COVID. Some people got several ballots, dead people got ballots, people who had moved got ballots, people who weren't legitimate voters got ballots. It was a huge problem. So it's a problem. And I know that we have big concerns, but I would say that the cost to the towns, I've heard more about that than anything. And perhaps a lot of the citizens in the towns aren't aware, but you will when your budgets come out and when they point that out to you, how costly it is. You know, perhaps maybe it might have been reasonable that we did Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday before Election Day. That gave you 2 more weekdays and a weekend, something like that. But they got to call the shots, and the shots were 2 full weeks. And that's how it is. So we'll be talking about that in session, I'm sure. I don't know where that will go, but we will be talking about it. What was the other?
Oh, the other one was the legal notice.
Oh, the legal notice, yeah, I can certainly check that. I did not know you couldn't put that in the Turnpike Fire, but yeah, I can see, especially where papers are becoming more and more obsolete, the staffing is less and less. You're suggesting that you can't even get a time or a date when your ad will go out, so I could see where it would be a problem. So we'll check on that as well.
Yeah, virtually every year that I've been in the legislature, there has been a proposal to allow towns to find some alternative means of giving notice of, you know, legal notices, notices of meetings and things like that. And those proposals are fought very, very heavily by the newspapers' lobbies. And there was a time when newspapers would literally come up and say anybody that votes to get rid of the legal notice requirement in newspapers will never get endorsed by the newspapers. They came right out and said it. Now, I don't even know if newspapers endorse candidates anymore, and if they do, who cares? So I'm not sure how much juice they have up there anymore. I am quite certain that another proposal will come up this coming year to allow other ways to provide notice. The legislature has sort of nibbled around the edges and tried to give some alternatives while still requiring the towns send money to the newspapers, but my guess is in either this year or next year or very soon, the requirement to publish it in an actual paper newspaper is going to be gone pretty soon.
Like for one ad, we've been paying, one ad is at least $1,200. Yeah, so if you put an ad out there multiple times during the year, that eats your budget up. If you go to like a Turnpike buyer instead, you've got a whole page, you're going to put a whole page up there for maybe $420. So it's much more cost effective. I just want there to be a way to do it, in a way that we all can live with, and it doesn't impact the taxpayers because you have to figure out how many times am I going to do something throughout the year and put that into my budget. So I'll definitely work with you on some ideas.
Right. Well, I think one of the issues is general circulation. You know, what newspapers have general circulation anymore? You know, the town website probably has a wider reach than any newspaper in town. You know, if you want to, you know, most towns don't have a Turnpike buyer or something similar. You know, I live in Chaplin, in my town, we're kind of out of reach of the day or the bulletin. I'd be willing to bet more people actually buy the New York Times or the New York Post in Chaplin than any of the newspapers printed in Eastern Connecticut. So, you know, what does it mean to be general circulation? Doesn't mean the same thing it meant last year or 10 years ago. And it certainly isn't the same as it will mean next year or 10 years from now. So we do need to make some changes.
Thank you for that. And we'll keep a conversation about the other ones too. Appreciate that. Sorry I stole your time, but is there anybody else that has other questions or concerns?
Couple comments. I'm Cliff Marlowe. I live in Lisbon. Congratulations to you both on your re-election. You're actually in a smaller minority compared to the Democrats that you were prior, right? Because the Democrats actually gained seats, so I guess that probably means you'll have even less power than before. Is that correct? Unfortunately, for you guys.
Is everybody able to hear him?
No.
Hear me? Oh, I just.
Why don't you come up and...
Or that one?
I think that one over there is better.
Yeah, we have a count number.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's right. Just going to still speak in right from the right side.
So, when I said congratulations to Ann and Doug on their re-election, a little disappointed that, you know, the faithful minority is even smaller than it was, because it just means there's probably more opportunity for the Democrats to steamroll whatever they want through the legislature, which I think that they pretty much make the agenda correct. Also, Doug, I wanted to thank you. I've been reading up a little bit on House Bill 6590 from last year. We're starting to see some blowback from 6590. I know you voted against it, but unfortunately a lot of your senatorial colleagues on the Republican side were for it.
Can you remind us what that is?
Yeah, 6590, House Bill 6590 from 2023 basically states that anybody, it's a loss of local control, and I know you're a defender of local control. House Bill 6590 means that your neighbor, without any approval from the state locale, from your locality or township, can open up a daycare center with up to 12 children in it and staff, and they don't need any permission from the town zoning. Nobody has anything to say about it. It's a state override of any local control. I looked up online. I see that you voted against it. I know that you're a defender of local property control and local rights. This is just one more battle that got lost. So you really have no say. A landlord has no say. If a neighbor decides to open up a daycare center, as long as it gets the state permit, it's open for business. And basically, you have the business next door, and nobody has anything to say about it, which is unfortunate because it's impactful to a neighborhood, particularly if the houses are close. Thank you for opposing it. It wasn't universally opposed by the Republicans, unfortunately.
Thank you. I do remember that bill. My feeling generally is that towns should be able to decide their own zoning regulations.
And people from the town should be able to come and say, hey, I don't want all that additional traffic next door 20 feet from my driveway. That's all going on. That's kind of a trend, isn't it, for state mandates and taking over local compliance?
Well, I can assure you that there will be more bills like that this year that will, where the state will try to make decisions that towns typically have made, especially with regard to what they consider affordable housing. And there is a contingent that is trying very hard to push through regulations that will prevent towns from stopping it. And I've been fighting against this stuff since they first started it in 2016, I think, is when they really started to push. And the push really was to force towns to have high-density housing. So many towns have zones that have 2-acre zoning or 1-acre zoning, and the proposals generally push towards getting rid of those limitations and saying you could have up to 14 units per acre everywhere in town. Now, when they couldn't get that through, they tried what they call transit-oriented development. And essentially what that means is that everywhere there's a bus stop or a train stop, you put a pin in the map and you draw a circle around it of a half a mile, and that's your transit-oriented zone. And then in that zone, you have to change the density requirements and the septic requirements as well. The
You got
people pushing
830G also, right? That's
I'm sorry?
830G. The 830G where you
Yeah, that
that's a statement.
kind of plays into it to some extent, but it's not really an 830G issue. It's an entirely different affordable housing issue. 830G essentially says that if a developer comes to town and wants to build low-income housing and is denied, based on zoning regulations, based on character of the town or whatever, if the developer is denied, 830G allows the developer to go to court, and there's an expedited appeals process. And in that appeals process, the town has the burden of proof to establish why it denied the application. And it gets a lot more legal and technical after that, but what the proponents of these proposals are trying to do is leave 830G in place and create additional mechanisms for these high-density, low-income housing developments. One of which being the transit-oriented development. And what that would do is essentially every town would be required to submit their zoning regulations to the state, and the state would go through them and ensure compliance with the state regulations. And I think that's, that's the same thing as the combining all of the colleges. We're going to have, one. We might as well get rid of town government if you're not going to let the town do anything.
Doug, do they still have the 10% requirement? 10% affordable housing?
That requirement is still in there. But that's the trigger for 830G. So essentially a developer comes to town and says, we want to build 300 low-income housing units on a 10-acre parcel. The town says, no, we don't have any services. We don't have police. We don't have sewer. We don't have water. We don't have senior center. We don't have all these things that are necessary. We don't have the ability to support a facility like that. So the developer could go to court, and before they go, they would look to see how many affordable housing units you have in town. If the town has 10% or more already, then the developer doesn't qualify for the expedited appeals process. They have to go through a standard appeals process like everybody else. If the town has less than 10% of affordable housing, then the developer qualifies for the expedited appeal in court. Now, in my view, the biggest problem is what is the definition of affordable housing? Normally, we would think of affordable housing as housing that is inexpensive, that is affordable, that most people can afford. Not in Connecticut. In Connecticut, the definition includes a requirement that the housing unit be built after 1990, and that there be a deed restriction. I believe the restriction is 40 years. You have to put the deed restriction on the property saying that that property cannot be rented for less than, the rent has to be less than 30% of the average income of people in a certain geographic area around the housing unit. I don't remember exactly what the geographic area is, but so if the income of a town drops, your rent has to drop. If the average income in the town or in that geographic area goes up, your rent can go up. But it's tied to the average of the incomes of the people in the area.
It must be a full-time job to keep track of all the housing and all the rents and all the wages. I mean, you're a town guy, right?
Yep.
Is that
I
that's
keep
somebody's
track
job?
of it. Who's going to do the tracking? Are the numbers correct?
I mean, if somebody was renting an apartment for $500 a month, if it's not registered, they don't get any credit for it, right?
Well, let's say I have a house. You know, I own a house. You know, my parents used to live there, and they no longer live there. So I've got this extra house, and I want to rent it out. I want to rent it to, you know, a growing family, a little couple that has a kid. You know, I want to rent it out real cheap. So I rent it out for, you know, I have a 3-bedroom house with 2 bathrooms and a couple of acres. I rent it to them for $200 a month. By any possible metric, that is affordable. In any community in Connecticut, that would be affordable.
Extremely affordable.
But it doesn't count as affordable housing because there's no deed restriction on it, and it may have been built before 1990.
So I'm going to guess the majority of the 169 towns are probably out of compliance and not in 10%. It's just the administrative burden of managing all that. Even if it was there.
Most towns in the state are out of compliance, and you know, I represent 8 towns. Only 2 of them have more than 7,500 people: Plainfield and Norwich. There is not a single town in the state of Connecticut that has less than 7,500 residents that meets the 10%. Not one. It can't. It doesn't. There is no way to do it unless the town has tons of money and can build its own housing. But in a small town, who's going to build the housing? And if you've got housing, who's going to put a deed restriction, 40-year deed restriction on your own house? It's crazy.
So just to make you happy, Plainfield has, I think it's 12.5.
I don't know now.
And we were at
After what he
12.5.
says, we don't have deed-restricted housing.
Well, but that's what we were last.
So they must go on other things. I was told it goes on HUD, Section 8, USDA loans. They take all that into consideration too. I didn't know there was a date cutoff too, 1990.
I was being simplistic. There's a whole list of requirements in order to make it work.
But we were told we have 12.5. But if we don't have deed-restricted, I don't know.
You may have it or not know it. Very often, if you have some type of government assistance, there is a deed restriction on it.
Doug, is there anything to help the farmers here? We have farmers in town. and one expressed a concern. He's fourth generation. And they have a lot of land, family land. Is there anything to help them continue to be farm and not just sell everything? Do you have any programs or?
There are lots of programs to help farmers. All the farm bills come through the Environment Committee. So there isn't anything that affects farmers that I don't see first. There are many things that help farmers, the main one being what's called Public Act 490, which is if you've got farmland and you are actively farming it, you can apply to the town to pay a significantly reduced tax rate. There are obviously there are limitations to that, but there are 3 types of designation. There's farmland, forestry, and open space. Every town must, by law, participate in forestry and farmland categories. Towns can choose, they can opt into or choose not to opt into the open space category. I'm working on a project right now, and as you know, I'm also because the land is actively farmed, they are taxed as if it were about $1,500 as opposed to $100,000. It's a significant savings. Anyone else?
My name is Jim Rivers. I'm the new director at NECOM. And I congratulate both of you on your election victories, and I look forward to working with you. Kevin mentioned there's about 10 items that the council has worked on the last couple of meetings. Some of them may be of interest to you, some may not. And in the next couple of months, leading up to the session, we'll invite you in with the other elected officials in our district or area and see what we can come to, and maybe you folks take some things, or maybe we all take all of that, some of them, and maybe some people take others. So I'm hoping that we'll find some representation, if not everyone, to help us with those items. But they're items that are important to the leaders and their constituents in each of the towns. There's a lot of commonality, of course. You know all the players here. We have a lot of, I will say that I'm quite excited about the session coming up, and then maybe the session after. We have a very experienced group at the council right now, First Selectmen and mayors. And you folks are very experienced, and you know your way around Hartford, and some of the other members that got reelected. And that's when you can get things done, when people know their way around. They know, as Representative Dubitsky says, you got to have some language proposal that makes common sense, to understand the consequences. As you all know, I was also a town leader a couple of times over in different places, and I saw a lot of legislation coming from Hartford. While it may be well intended, the consequences on the ground are sometimes brutal and financially strapping. The election stuff that Kevin talked about, it's hurting every town. It might have maybe helped some of the cities, because you can see where some of the problems have been in the past. But most of the towns out here did not have a lot of election issues. We have dedicated people that, like you said, they got to spend all day long there, and they don't want to do that 14 days in a row. And it's harder and harder to find people. They're grayer and grayer people like me that have been there doing it for 40 years. And there's not many people coming up behind them to volunteer. Now we pay people, but it's not enough, to be there all day. So that's one of the top issues. I think there were a few priorities and Kevin mentioned a couple of them. Some of them were, maybe one or two of the members, threw it out there. But the election item was common across the board. The other one was the advertisement issue. Across the board. I think the other one that you may not have heard about is the pistol permit issue, which is privacy issues, with people's private information, it's become more and more hard for small towns especially that don't have staff to assist them with these pistol permits to deal with the paperwork. Once again, probably well intended to create another opportunity to check people, to make sure somebody's not having a rough time mentally, and then they're, and they may not show up on a background check. But we're not experts as to somebody's mental acuity or even know everybody. And then we're signing off. I'll tell you one story with that personally, and I have many. I signed off on a permit years ago as the first selectman in Pomfret. And that gentleman, kind of knew him. He was a showman with a hand, like a rodeo guy, spun him around and trick shooting and things like that.
Pistolero.
Pistolero. And the gentleman, unfortunately, a month later, ended up shooting up his house and was surrounded and ended up perishing in the incident in Pomfret. And I signed that permit a month earlier. I didn't feel too good about that. And I didn't know. How do I know? And sometimes you just don't. So I think a lot of the first thought, not that we want to shuck our responsibilities here, but we're not chiefs of police, and we don't have the time for that. And the other thing I'll say on the flip side of that is, it takes a very long time to get your handgun permit in the state now. And you have to have it even just to buy ammo. You need permits to buy ammo, and I'm not going to argue that one way or the other. But it would be an opportunity, it seems, to streamline the process for someone, maybe cost less. If you just go to the state, you have to go to the state anyway. They have to give us the direction, the rules. We converse with them all the time as to whether we should let this one go or that one go. Why not just have Middletown or wherever they're heading, those applications headed in the end, and just go straight to them? So I'm giving you the talking points, but it seems like, again, there may be a reason to leave it with the towns or have it with the towns. One person on, Mary from Killingly, mentioned that maybe having like a local option, if they wanted to be included in the process, if they have a police department and they wanted their chief of police to get a chance to review that, maybe that, there's sometimes legislation that gives options to towns you can get it passed, but it's better for everybody because every town is a little different. Like the cities, I could see maybe their police departments want to kind of know who the frequent flyers are, and they may not be showing up on the background check. So anyway, that was one of the issues, I think Kevin's nodding, I'll say that was universal amongst all the selectmen. And over the years, we have talked about this. I did mention it to Pat Boyd, who I think is on public safety, and he seemed to think that there would be bipartisan support for something to give these first selectmen and mayors an option or opt out of having to,
I believe he's chair.
I think he is the chair. I think he is. So again, those are the three that come to mind. That all of them seem to be, on top. I say maybe the fourth issue was the animal control facility. Maybe some bonding for a new animal control facility down the road. In which direction we're going to go with that? As you know, we have grown dramatically. We're serving 20 towns, down Norwich to Colchester to Woodstock, and a lot of towns in between. And the facility we have is stacked right now with dogs and cats, which is sad. But
You're speaking of the Dayville facility.
the Dayville facility. We also have the Norwich facility. So we have the two facilities, but with 20 towns, it's just not adequate. And they're dated, and the standards have changed, and they're tired. So we're going to start a campaign. I'm trying to raise some funds privately. I've got a few leads on that, and maybe to put a package together, but that might be something. I know Montville just went through a bonding package with a little bit of skin in the game, and they ended up with $2 million from the state for a facility serving many fewer townspeople in the area than we are. So anyway, I think those maybe would be the four top, but we'll talk some more, privately, but also we'll have you come into a meeting with the other representatives and hear from the council members. Thank you for being here tonight, by the way.
Thank you, Jim.
Well, I'll just quickly address the fiscal permit issue. Things are going to change one way or another. One of the things that President Trump has said he was going to do was have nationwide reciprocity. Reciprocity means that if you have a permit in any state, it's good in every state.
Like a driver's license.
Connecticut is one of the few states in the nation that still refuses to acknowledge reciprocity with any state. So if you want to carry in Connecticut, you must have a Connecticut permit. I think that will be changed within a few months. That's one of the first things he said he's going to do. What I expect Connecticut to do is go to court and try to get that overturned. They will. I also expect them to put in all sorts of legislation to try to get around it. When the Supreme Court issued its New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin decision in 2021, I think it was, New York, which essentially overturned New York City's ban on carry and refusal to issue pistol permits. New York almost immediately went into special session and passed all sorts of laws considering virtually the entire city of New York as a sensitive place. So the Supreme Court ruled that you can't carry a gun in sensitive places such as courthouses, certain government buildings, schools, and things like that. So New York went and said all of New York City is a sensitive place, so you can't carry in New York. I expect that when the nationwide reciprocity bill goes through, which I have no doubt will happen in the next few months, Connecticut will starting with the Attorney General, William Tom, will sue and they will start changing the laws. They will start changing the permitting requirements. They will start changing the carrying requirements. They will start changing the location requirements. So I see that you want to work on how towns do mental health reviews.
It was
Right now,
just discussion item because of every town leader. Plainfield is unique because we have a police station, but a lot of the town leaders are looking for some other way to help and support their decision to allow for a permit. And like you said, you have a person who maybe wasn't balanced and stable. How are you going to tell them? How are you going to be with support? How are you going to make sure that everybody's good?
No, I understand. My guess is that will no longer be an issue soon. And that I'm guessing, this is just a guess, I look at my crystal ball, I think much of the decision-making will be taken from the towns. So you won't have, you will either just be an administrator to stamp a document and send it to Hartford, or something else. Right now, there's a lot of moving parts to it, and they're all up in the air at the moment. And they're all likely to change drastically in the next few months.
Thank you.
But I understand your concern that you don't have the training and the ability to make those decisions, and what the First Selectman, who actually has to sign it, and frankly, you shouldn't have to. It shouldn't be on you.
Better way to bet. So for those people who looked onto their watches, we were supposed to be here from 6 to 7, but it was well past that. But I will ask this. We are going to ask, are there other concerns, other questions that you have? Because it's important while you have your legislators here to be able to, address those issues with them. So is there anybody else here that has something?
I just got a quick and easy one. I'd like to see nips banned. I know we talked about that subject.
Like what?
Probably nip bottles that are all roadways and parking lots and sewers. I'd like to see a state ban on selling nips.
They're not going to ban them. That goes through the Environment Committee. We've had this discussion for probably the last 10 years. The solution has been to add them to the deposit list, and they now have a 10-cent deposit.
Which you can't get back, because you can't return them.
Right. It's not enough to get somebody to pick them up. The town just gets money because they sold X amount of
It's
nips.
an odd thing that they did.
Because I'm still picking them up.
I can tell you what we do in Plainfield, if that's okay. In Plainfield, we designated money to purchase a sweeper. So that way, when we go out there, we'll get the purchase from those monies and be able to go out and just take care of the
It's
sweeper.
not mandated that you dedicate that.
No, every town will do
You do
something.
every
different.
holiday, you buy a playground or something.
True. But we're looking at it as it was for,
Yeah.
throwing them on the side of the
Doing the
road.
right thing.
Let's use it to clean it up.
I'd like to see it.
I know, no. That's a big push.
I guess there's too much money being made, right?
Oh, it is, it's very popular.
Thanks so much.
Each town gets it based on the sale.
But the people that collect it, they get to go to the recycle and like that.
Off their bottles.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah, the way I think it is, and I'm not sure, I don't recall the details, but my understanding of it is that if somebody finds it, they bring it to the redemption center, they get half of the deposit. The other half goes to the town, and the town uses those, it's supposed to use those funds for litter remediation.
Well, Kevin was just saying they can use it for whatever they want.
Well, we have it designated to go to a certain area. We
That
could
was
also
your
do it
choice, that's
for-
not mandated.
Right, it's not mandated, but we can have it for trash cans, we can do it for education, we can do it for equipment. We chose equipment because I think it's the direct line into going back to clean up those nip bottles.
Right, you don't have to. It's a nice
I
idea.
think they're supposed to. I know there was at least discussion about mandating it.
I think you're wrong on, so what you're saying, if I walk into a liquor store with my empty nips I pick up on 169, they're going to...
No, you can't bring them back to the liquor store, you have to bring them to the
Redemption
redemption
centers
center.
are far and few between as well.
They just put one in
Anyway,
Killingly.
yeah,
Killingly now has a redemption.
down by the Geary Brothers,
Yeah.
Geary,
I'll follow up on that, thank you. Because I asked them, the liquor store, they said they pay somebody to clean their parking lot up. But of course, they're making money, so it's all good.
Can you imagine sticking them in the machine at a big wire? These little things going in the big machine.
But, there certainly will be a new bill about NIPS. There's one every year. There's always discussion about it, and they just imposed that, it's not really a deposit, it's a fee. They just imposed that, I think it was 2 years ago. So my guess is they're going to want to see how it plays out over the next couple of years before they make a big change.
It's free money for the town.
not exactly free. But we do utilize the monies that we get, and we appreciate them. We're able to do something with it.
Right, but I can guarantee you
They're not going to get out.
banned.
You know, some states have alcohol, you know that.
Yeah, big business, they sell to many.
All right, thank you.
If the state can make a dollar, they will.
We'll put up with the mess.
Hey, if you want to clean up the town, just make the package store, make them return. Because in my neighborhood, they'll pick up 10 bottles, get free nip at the package store. So if they're allowed to bring those nips to the package store, get their 10 cents, get their 10 cents back, I guarantee my yard will be clean.
That's
I do that with beer cans, I put them on my sidewalk, within 5 minutes they're gone, because they go to the package store and get another beer. So what good charging 10 cents, 20 cents, 30 cents per nip. If that guy can't get it back, he's gonna leave it on the ground. I'm not picking up a nip, bring it to a dentist to get a nickel if I paid a dime for it. So you make the package stores, if they're charging you 10 cents, they can give 10 cents back. I guarantee your neighborhood will be clean.
Well, the problem with making the liquor stores take them back is that, you know, like in my town, we have one liquor store that's open. It has one guy that works there.
He sells it, doesn't he? He sells the stuff, right? He's selling it, should be there.
If he doesn't sell them, he doesn't have to take them back.
Even the returns they have now is a big burden to the workers, like you say.
Or go to any package store with the beer cans, and you bring them all back.
They bring it to the redemption center. They get half of the deposit. The other half goes to the town, and the town uses those. It's supposed to use those funds for litter remediation.
Kevin was just saying they can use it for whatever they want.
Well, we have it designated to go to a certain area.
That
We could
was
also
your
do
choice,
it
that's
for-
not mandated.
Right, it's not mandated, but we can have it for trash cans, we can do it for education, we can do it for equipment. We chose equipment because I think it's the direct line into going back to clean up those nip bottles.
Right, you don't have to. It's a nice
I
idea.
think they're supposed to. I know there was at least discussion about mandating it.
I think you're wrong on, so what you're saying, if I walk into a liquor store with my empty nips I picked up on 169, they're gonna...
No, you can't bring them back to the liquor store, you have to bring them to the
Redemption
redemption
centers
center.
are far and few between as well.
We just put one in
Killing
Killingly.
yeah,
Killingly now has a redemption.
down by the Gary Brothers, Gary,
I'll follow up on that, thank you. Because I asked the liquor store, they said they pay somebody to clean their parking lot up. But of course, they're making the money, so it's all good.
Can you imagine sticking them in the machine at the big wire? These little things going in.
But, you know, there certainly will be a new bill about NIPS. There's one every year. There's always discussion about it, and they just imposed that, well, it's not really a deposit, it's a fee. They just imposed that, I think it was 2 years ago. So my guess is they're going to want to see how it plays out over the next couple of years before they make a big change.
It's free money for the town.
not exactly free. But we do utilize the monies that we get, and we appreciate them. We're able to do something with it.
Right, but I can guarantee you they're not
They're not going to get out
banned.
You know, some states have alcohol, you know that.
Yeah, big business, they sell to many.
All right, thank you.
If the state can make a dollar, they will.
We'll put up with the mess.
Hey, if you want to clean up the town, just make the package store, make them return. Because my neighborhood, they'll pick up 10 bottles to get free nip at the package store. So if they're allowed to bring those nips to the package store, get their 10
create an
cents,
incentive.
get their 10 cents back, I guarantee my yard will be clean.
That's
So I do
that's
that
what
with,
they
I do
do.
that with beer cans, I put them on my sidewalk, within 5 minutes they're gone. Because they go to the package store and get another beer. So if they, what good charging 10 cents, 20 cents, 30 cents per nip? If that guy can't get it back, he's gonna leave it on the ground. I'm not picking up a nip, bring it to a dentist to get a nickel if I paid a dime for it. So you make the package stores, if they're charging you 10 cents, they can give 10 cents back. I guarantee your neighborhood will be clean.
The problem with making the liquor stores take them back is that, you know, like in my town, we have one liquor store that's open. It has one guy that works there.
He sells it, doesn't he? He sells the stuff, right? He's selling it, should be there.
If he doesn't sell them, he doesn't have to take them back, I'll tell you.
Even the returns they have now is a big burden to the workers, like you say.
But go to any package store with the beer cans, and you bring them all back.
Hey Doug, about this public benefits thing on the electric bills, is that going to end at some point? Once they reach their, what do they got to collect? $2 million, I think that they.
No, I don't remember how much they have to collect. There is a date that it's supposed to stop.
It doesn't stop entirely. So the public benefits, so Pura, who is commissioned to make a lot of these choices, had decided to prolong the COVID pass that was given to a lot of individuals for free power, free electricity. That was in there. There were some other charges in there. One was a little bit of an increase in millstone that we're paying, along with a lot of other things. But those particular things were postponed, and they weren't added in our bill. And so what you're talking about is the part that wasn't added in our bill to catch us up. But the public's benefit will not go away. That's at least,
Oh,
I
don't
haven't heard
understand
anybody
once they-
who's supportive of that. The things that are in there are, many. The free power we give, because we do give free heating and electricity to individuals. We do subsidies for energy, like solar.
Man, why are they hitting us, the ratepayers, for that?
That should be a taxpayer fund.
That
Well,
should be a,
and so what the
well, there should be a
Republicans,
special fund put away
so
for that.
what the Republicans proposed, what they asked for this summer when they did the petition was to say, let's come together and talk about this problem. Let's figure out how we can address this legislatively rather than having it being in the bill, correct? And another way to get the money to pay for it. So, for example, we could all vote on how much we want to subsidize free for individuals, or the many number of things, but it wouldn't be in your bill. But there were some funds that we had that we wanted to access to curb that high cost that's been hit to all the ratepayers. And there was no interest from the Democrat Party. That is the bottom line.
They
When I
didn't
do
use
that.
any COVID.
Yeah,
But just
Unreceived
so I can
COVID funds,
finish,
yes.
in May, I believe this increase that we didn't pay for prior to, we're trying to catch up, will go down in May. That back pay will have caught up, but we will still be paying public benefits. If that's
You
your
mean this is not going away?
Here's my problem.
That's crazy. I thought it was gonna end.
Couple things. First off, I live in Chapman. It's a little tiny town. I have Comcast cable, right? Cable runs across the poles, comes to my house. I get my TV and my internet that way. I just got a letter that Frontier has just put in fiber optic cable. So now I have a choice between Frontier and Comcast. Or I could get satellite. There's plenty of other ways to do it. Or I could get it over the telephone lines. With, what are they? It's got an acronym, I don't remember what it is. But, I've got 4 or 5 different ways I can get my internet and my TV. There's only one way I can get my electric. Why is that? Why does Eversource have a monopoly? Anybody know?
Private partnership with government.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because the Democrats
It's
want it.
deregulation.
They want it that way, and that's the way it is. Because they decided that we are going to have a single company monopoly over most of the state.
How do we change that?
The other one is United Illuminating, which has its own monopoly area.
But isn't
And-
that part of Eversource as well? It's one company, and they just have different names?
I'm sorry?
Isn't it the same company, they just have different
No,
names?
there's
No.
about 5 companies in the state.
No, there's 2 monopolies. There are 7 municipal operations.
Correct.
Municipal companies. So Norwich has Norwich Public Utilities.
Right.
Basra has Basra Light and Power. There's one in
Right.
Jewett City, there's one in Wallingford, there's one in one of the lines, I don't remember which one, so there's 7 of them. They
Those
have,
people get their electric from those.
they have much better service, they have lower cost, they have, they're more responsive when there's an outage. Why can't the rest of the state have an option? I put in a bill in 2022 that I got through the House, never got a vote in the Senate, to study how to allow for increased competition, for better accountability. I'm going to put that bill in again. I couldn't get it through the House a second time. But I'm going to keep putting that in because that's ultimately the real issue. That everything is done on a monopoly basis through the state. The people in Hartford make these decisions. The people in Hartford decide how much the rates are going to be. They decide when there needs to be an upgrade. They force the monopolies to do the upgrade, and then the monopolies bill back in these charges.
I was led to believe that once they collected the amount of money that they handed out to these people who couldn't pay their bills, once that was paid off, this would end. It's not going to end.
Let me give you a little history. Before I became a legislator, you know, I'm an attorney, as I told you. I do a lot of litigation. I actually represented Senator Joe Markley at the time. He was in the legislature. He was a senator. And I was his attorney. And we sued the state. We sued the governor because the legislature had mandated that both Eversource, but it was Connecticut Light and Power at the time, and United Illuminating, forced them to do certain upgrades. So they did the upgrades, and then they had this charge on the bill. And they charged people until the upgrades were paid for. And then both companies went to the legislature and said, we've collected enough money, we've been paid back for the upgrades, we're going to take it off the bill. And the legislature said, no, continue charging it because people are used to paying it, and instead of keeping it, send it to the state, we'll put it in the general fund. So we fought that. We fought it in court, we fought it at the appellate level, and we went to the Connecticut Supreme Court. And the Connecticut Supreme Court, in its infinite wisdom, said, it's a tax. The legislature is allowed to tax people. Go ahead, they can keep doing it. Thankfully, though, we delayed the decision long enough that during the pendency of the case, they had taken it off the bill. And when the Supreme Court eventually ruled that they could do it, it was already too late in the session, they couldn't put it back. So we won by losing. But that's what the legislature does.
So this isn't going to go away.
Technically, it's supposed to be paid for by May, the increase, but what Representative Dubitsky is saying is he's not sure that they're not going to keep charging us. An example of that is the crumbling foundations. Several years ago, they added into our insurance policies this additional money to cover for all of the crumbling foundations for a certain amount of time, and once they were taken care of, it was supposed to go away. And it didn't go away, because now they're doing it for something else. I can't remember the latest thing they're doing, but now they've decided to use that money for some other issue they're having somewhere, and I can't remember what it is. I just heard...
I think it was the contaminated wells.
It might have been, but to his point, even though it's supposed to come back down and go away, it may not. I think that's what he's preparing you for, is that sometimes they get the charges in and they're never going to go away.
How do we make sure they go away? How do we do that? How do we do that? No, really, how do we do that? Do we write certain people, contact certain people? What do we do?
You're right, Norm Needleman?
I
Norm.
No, this can't go on. This just can't go on. It's ridiculous.
Keep an eye on it.
It's communism.
Keep track of it. Don't let it go away. These aren't the only legislators you can contact. I would say contact the people on the other side of the aisle. Let them know that it's not right. The more voices they hear talking about the negative impact it is to everybody else, at least they're going to be listening to a lot more people saying this is wrong.
But when you call there, if they're not your town person,
It doesn't matter.
they won't even talk to you.
You
and they won't
leave
get
a
back to you.
message, you send letters, you do everything you can, get your neighbors and friends to do the same thing. This is the state of Connecticut, it's not their Connecticut, it's ours.
Yes.
I have an issue with this because I have two special needs kids at home.
Would you mind going to the microphone? I'm just having a hard time hearing you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not hard to hear.
What your name is? Just your-
Real savage.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have two special needs kids at home, and Access would say to me, oh, they're eligible for the free oil or whatever it is that I heat with.
Yep.
Never in the 42 years that I've had my kids have I ever applied for any of this. I don't have a lot of money, but I don't need that money. I applied for it. I had an 8-cent electric bill because I signed on to something else. Right away, I get my next electric bill, it's at the price that Eversource has. 11, 12, whatever it was. So I fought them. I said, why did I lose it? And they said, because I'm a hardship. My son's name is not on my bill. He only lives in my house. And I did fight it. I did get my 8 cents. But who the heck are they that they're going to change my stuff for somebody who lives in my house? He doesn't pay the bill. I pay the bill. They're sneaky there too, because that's telling me that anybody who is in a difficult place and wants to go with a lower rate, they can't because they're a hardship. I know it's a business, I get that, but is there any way we can write something in there? And I don't know how many people know this, but that's, how are you going to get ahead if you can't get a better price?
That's a good point, and it's something that we'll definitely put on our list. But I tell you, that's not uncommon across the government. So going back to the firearms for a minute, you know, I'm aware of multiple people who, you know, they own firearms and they keep them locked up in a safe, and you know, one of the kids or a parent or somebody has an incident and they have to go to a mental health facility or something, and suddenly the cops come and take their guns. You're like, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't have any mental problems. Sorry, they live in your house. Your guns are gone.
Right. And I have that same situation because my kids, I mean, my son is 41 years old and has the mental capacity of a 5-year-old. I keep my things locked up. They have no way of getting to them. And that's what they would do to me if, you know, I said, okay, I can't handle them anymore. They're going to come and do that to me. No doubt. I don't know. There's got to be something that we can do about that. And I will never, ever, ever apply for that again because what they told me was it's all looped into one. And that's why they took it away from me.
And a lot of that is not actually in any statute. It's just policy of company or, you know, something that Pure allows them to do.
Okay.
Or somebody's interpretation.
So who's in charge of this Pure, you know? It's just a bunch of people?
Yeah.
So is it
The governor's the one that assigns people to Pure.
Why is it? So, we looked at solar, and so my husband and I looked at solar, and one of the problems with solar is that we still have to have electric. Why can't we be off grid? They said it's in Connecticut.
You're entitled to be off grid if you want.
No, not in the state of Connecticut. They said the state of Connecticut makes you stay on grid. So even if we were able to 100% pay for all electric and not need Eversource at all, we would still have to pay Eversource.
Well, you can
Because
get,
it's the law.
you don't have to go through Eversource to get solar.
No, but I want to get solar and not have Eversource at all, but it's apparently illegal in Connecticut.
You can't store, right?
I don't think that's right.
You can't disconnect from the grid. That's what she's saying. You can't disconnect from the, and I've been
run your house. You don't have to. If you want to be part of a program of some sort, like if you want to, like a lot of these solar companies, they'll lease you the panels, and they'll guarantee you a certain electric bill every month for the next 10 or 15 years or something like that. They will want you to be on, connected to the grid, because that's how they make their money. They sell the additional power back to the grid.
the company, yeah. They sell the excess.
But you can, you can go buy solar panels today and just do your own thing. You don't have, there's no law that says you have to buy electricity.
So I could put my own solar panels on, be 100% off grid.
Well, isn't that what you want to do?
Well, that's what I want to do. But when we met the solar company, they said we couldn't do that. Because
Well, but
there's
that's,
a law
well,
in it.
they won't do it.
You can't do that.
No, they can't, they won't do it.
So
The
I can
solar
do that
company
myself.
won't do it. You can do it.
Okay.
There's a lot of companies out there doing this. My advice is to shop around for the best option, best deal. Because I know people who, like you said, they pay $120 a month or whatever, and that's it. But they're still on the grid, they're still connected to the wires, but the deal is that whatever excess goes back to the weather source or whoever. And all they gotta do is pay $120 a month. But there's a lot of plans out there, that's the thing. You gotta look at the right plans, you gotta really look around. They're all different.
First of all, I want to thank you, congratulate you. You're being part of the discussions that go on in Connecticut. So for you to come out here and meet with your legislators to talk about the issues is very important, and we thank you. Second of all, I want to thank the legislators for coming out because they wanted to hear what you have to say. There are a couple things. First of all, there is a sign-up sheet if you haven't signed up already. Second of all, they have cards for you. So if you want to go back and forth and communicate with them additionally from tonight, we had an hour and a half. But additionally, you have other questions or concerns, you want to share the information that you said you helped them out, that's fantastic. Please do that. So that's the things that are happening. We do these, what, quarterly maybe? 2 or 3 times a year?
We try to do quarterly, we try to do before session, we try to do right after session. We try to be available for you, but certainly you can reach out to us by email and phone. So.
And normally we would have had Heather here. She had another appointment, so she couldn't make it tonight. Again, I want to thank you all for coming out. Before you go, now the fun stuff. I have a few things. If you're interested, in the town of Plainfield on December 6th is having a Christmas tree lighting ceremony. I happen to have a few flyers if you want to learn a little bit about it. We enjoy the fact that we have community that comes out to these events here, also to our tree lighting ceremony. We welcome yourself to come in. We have free food that night. There's choruses. There's a couple of hay rides going on out there. This is all community-based. This is your access to your government. Anytime you have a question, whether you want to contact them or Heather or myself, please do so. I thank you again for coming out tonight.